All right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Dear teachers, students, dear guests and friends, on behalf of the Jagiellonian Language Center, I'm very happy to welcome you today. It is the 6th edition of Best UJ presentation. Before we go on, I would like to mention our partners, without whom probably we wouldn't have decided to hold this event this year. So Center for Academic Support, thank you very much. We are co-host partners. We are in it together, and here we are online. Well, this is the 6th edition. So far we started at Paderewianu, then we were in Rotunda twice, then twice in Auditorium Maximum, and here we are, wearing slippers, I don't know, maybe pajama bottoms, maybe just slippers. All right, so definitely this is the most experimental event. Let's hope next year it won't be as experimental. Well, we hope to go back to Auditorium Maximum. Let me introduce our honorable guests and members of the jury first. So starting from the person chairing, the president, Professor Maria Jodłowiec from English Philology. Then Professor Justyna Bugaj, proxy for quality of education. Quality, a very important word. The next person, an old friend of ours, with us since the very beginning, Ms. Emilia Iskra from TED Krakow. And last but not least, Dr. Monika Stawicka from our place, from the Jagiellonian University, in the jury for the 3rd time at least. Right. So contestants, you are in good hands, and I'm sure you will be well judged with a very friendly eye. The last person I want to mention is the person who is going to be in charge, Mr. Piotr Godycki, sorry. Also an old friend. Piotr, is it the 4th time?
Actually, yes, it's something like the 4th time.
Something like that, or maybe the 3rd. All right, but of course the 1st time in this form. So he is the best person to explain the rules and to present the contestants. From me, once again, thank you very much for being here today. And Piotr, over to you.
Thank you so much, Madam. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is a privilege for me to be with you and see all of those faces online in pandemic times. I would like to welcome all of you once again at the Best UJ presentation 2021. As we all know, being a good presenter is very demanding. It mostly requires complexity of different skills. For example, speaking, body language, audience interaction, or voice levels. In a moment, we will see 8 people presenting their best. Let's give them an applause. Yeah, we can, you know, give them some applause even if it's online. So, you know, just to make it better. So, as a first person, I would like to invite Anna Zając with her presentation, Why Do We Sleep?
Hello. I would like to present some ideas concerning the things which we all experience, and some of us find them quite nice, mainly sleep. It seems rather obvious that the way we sleep
You have turned your mic off. Please turn it on.
Well, still not working.
Aha, okej, mikrofon się wyłączył, przepraszam, to jeszcze raz zacznę.
Okay, start again, please.
Okej, to momencik, tylko włączę sobie od początku. Sorry. I would like to present some ideas concerning the things which we all experience, and some of us find them quite nice, mainly sleep. It seems rather obvious that the way we sleep changes during the lifespan. The most dramatic change in REM sleep occurs shortly before the human fetus enters the world. It is actually difficult to say what the fetus is dreaming of, but what we know, for sure, it is vital for promoting brain maturation. The construction of a human being is a little bit like building a house. You cannot crown a house with a roof before there are supporting wall frames. Therefore, the brain, like a roof of a house, is one of the last items to be constructed. A number of experiments carried out by a neuroscientist proved that activity on a human brain is reflected in conditions of sleep, especially phase REM. Rapid eye movement. It is a phase of sleep when we move our eyes and dream vividly. Sometimes it is called paradoxical sleep. It has been shown that a human brain in general works in a similar way to internet, with its vast networks of fiber optical cables. Electrical activity during REM sleep stimulates the growth of neutral pathways. With age, the process of development of a brain changes, and so influence of external factors does. For example, from my own experience, I know that an adult, I mean a student, can live almost without any sleep and can be fed almost entirely with caffeine. It makes me learn better. Nevertheless, it appears that a child deprived of sleep and being under influence of caffeine loses their learning abilities. At first, all the connections are almost the same. with time, it appears that some of them are used more frequently, while others are nearly forgotten. The process is easy to observe in a case of teenagers. Once, an insurance company wondered why 16 years old drive as if they didn't have a part of their brain. The answer is simple, because they practically don't have. Why is that? The rise and fall pattern always begins at the back of the brain, which develops the functions of visual and spatial perception. Later, the frontal lobe is developed, enables rational thinking. Fortunately, in many European countries, unlike in the USA, you can get a driving license when a human brain and its connections are well grown. It is at the age of 18. Nevertheless, it happens that I doubt it is the fully developed brain when a young driver overtakes me, and sometimes I am convinced that TDI stands for totally damaged intelligence. The brain has masses of neural connections called synaptogenesis. Inside the brain of teenagers, there is a rapid process of changing neural connections, and therefore some parts of the brain are practically disconnected, and the same other parts are suddenly wired. The effect is obvious. Teenagers behave strange in the way that nobody can explain or predict. When they finally reach their mid-20s, such a phenomenon doesn't exist anymore, and car insurance premium drops as they drive and act responsible. What also influences the brain is light and length of sleep. Unfortunately, not everybody, even doctors, are convinced about it. Parents also don't allow their lazy children sleep long enough, and those seemingly lazy children who are so eager to rest and sleep appear to know better how to strengthen their brains, and as a result, less amount of melatonin is sold in drugstores and pharmacies. They simply do not need any dose. Melatonin is a hormone that regulates the sleep wake cycle, or in the other words, circadian rhythms. It is believed that students and older adults need less sleep, but it is a myth. They simply have less time to sleep. What really changes for them is reduced quantity and quantity of sleep, reduced sleep efficiency, and disrupted timing of sleep. By the time a person reaches 70 years old, they will have lost 80 to 90% for their youthful deep sleep. So no wonder that the brain of the older doesn't work as swiftly as teenagers' one. It has been confirmed that sleep is one of the most underestimated factors contributing to medical health and brain development. And studies over human brain that included thousands of cases of proved that activity of the brain changes all the time during the lifespan. That activity influences sleep and the other way around. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much. It was Anna Zając with her presentation, Why Do We Sleep? Next person that I would like to invite is Urszula Sieracka with her presentation, Chinese International Relations Theory.
Yes, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Let me quickly share my screen and I'll start presenting. So today I'm going to discuss a Chinese international relations theory, and I will try to explain why such a theory has not yet been established by Chinese scholars. Firstly, I'll go over some theories of international relations, and I will explain why China has the potential to create one. Then I'll list some potential reasons why Chinese scholars couldn't establish this theory in the past, and I'll present how the field of study developed in People's Republic of China. Then I will conclude with some benefits that a new theory could potentially bring to the field of study. Now, without further ado, let's start by explaining what a theory is in the context of international relations. The most general definition is that international relations theory deals with a set of ideas about how countries, so states and other international actors, operate and behave at the international level. It describes relationships between states as well as other international actors. Now, if we look at the main theories of international relations, such as liberalism, realism, constructivism, or idealism, after inspection, we can notice that, among other things, they have one very important thing in common. They are all created by Western scholars. This means that in one form or another, they are based upon the Western concept of the world, which was built mainly on the works of European philosophers and thinkers. Nevertheless, those theories are applied to the international sphere, even though the values that they are based upon are represented only by a limited group of countries. That's why it's important to open the field of international relations to other perspectives presented by scholars from different backgrounds and different regions. Researchers of international relations look at Asia to provide its contribution to the field. And among countries in that region, a country that stands out is China. China is arguably one of the most powerful countries in East Asia. With a population of around 1.4 billion people, it's the most populous country, not only among its neighbors, but on the whole globe. With a written history of around 3,500 years, it has the longest continuous written history of a country in the world. Throughout it, China has not only been a political leader, but also a source of innovation, technology, and science. In media, you might probably heard a lot about China, possibly due to the pandemic outbreak last year in the city of Wuhan, or maybe due to the economic war that it's involved in together with the United States. However, rarely do we hear about Chinese potential and contribution to the academic world. Many believe that its long cultural heritage, together with the rapid technological and economic development, could serve as an argument for China becoming the first country in Asia to conduct research that would result in the creation of its own original international relations theory. But why didn't China attempt to reach this goal sooner? There are three main historical factors that made it impossible for Chinese scholars to develop a theory of international relations in the past. First one is the difference in understanding the world in Chinese tradition. China traditionally was seen as the center of the world, and everything, even beyond the country's set borders, was considered to be under Chinese emperor's rule. Throughout centuries, Chinese contacts with other countries were shaped by the so-called tributary system. China was the leader and other countries merely the periphery. Those countries were not equal or sovereign in the Chinese perspective. Therefore, China did not see any reason to develop such a theory explaining its relationship with its neighbors, because the foreign policy was understood as simply an expansion of domestic policy. The second reason for not developing the theory is the unmistakable dominance of the Western thought in China. After the empire fell at the beginning of the 20th century, Chinese scholars saw Western theories as the key to modernize the country. They exchanged the traditional Chinese philosophies for the pursuit of foreign theories in order to learn them and in that way adapt to the contemporary world. Later, Chinese traditional philosophies as well as systems of beliefs were eradicated or limited by the Communist Party of China. This made it impossible for Chinese scholars to set a clear basis for further theoretical research as well as theoretical thinking, which is the third reason why that hindered the development of international relations theory in China. The basis could have potentially laid in Chinese philosophies such as Confucianism or Taoism. However, those Chinese philosophies for a long time stayed forgotten or were considered to be obsolete to the rapidly modernizing country. But those three reasons do not mean that the area of study did not develop and flourish in People's Republic of China. The first schools of international relations were founded in the 1950s, just after People's Republic of China was established in 1949. Their main goal was to quickly educate diplomats as well as experts in the field of public and national security, because the newly founded country needed well-educated specialists and government workers. That meant that there was no push towards more theoretical thinking about the field. Later in the 60s, up until the 80s, Chinese universities focused on teaching students the thought of Marx and Lenin, and if other theories were presented, they're mainly to be criticized. However, in 1979, China underwent a reform that moderately liberalized the country. This among other things, caused a surge in popularity of international relations in China. This resulted in publishers translating Western works into Chinese so that they could be more available not only to the students but to the general public. It was then that the theoretical research became separate from politics and policy making, and it marked a shift towards more theoretical thinking in order to build this kind of standardized worldview. But why should Chinese research into international relations be important for us? Each new theory, regardless of its origin, provides a new perspective and provokes a discussion in the academic world. What is more, it could broaden our knowledge and help us understand many regional issues which might be directly connected with the further development in the field of international relations. But above all, a theory originating in China could provide us with an invaluable insight into the country's perspective of the world. With growing political as well as economic potential, it might be important for world leaders to consider Chinese perspective to be important while conducting politics at the international level, not only now, but more so in the future. And that brings us to the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. It was Urszula Sieradzka with her presentation, A Chinese International Relations Theory. Now, I would like to invite third person, Sylwia Wołoch, with her presentation, Instagram Marketing.
All right, let me just share my screen. Good morning, everyone. For those who don't know me, my name is Sylwia, and today I'm going to talk about Instagram marketing. Recently, while browsing Instagram, I came across a very nice photo. The model's shirt caught my attention. Thanks to the brand profile marked in the photo description, I quickly found a store when I can get the same one. And here I am, sitting in front of you in my new shirt. But before the purchase, a moment of reflection came to me. How many times were you so inspired by a picture on Instagram that you just had to check? Where can I find this jacket? Or how can I prepare this meal? Or maybe how much does Selena Gomez's kitchen robot cost and can I have a similar one? In recent years, Instagram has become the most successful platform for photos. From a small place with a few thousand people who shared interesting content about their lives, it evolved into a place with more than 300 million users. Most of them are there to advertise themselves. But the main point of my presentation is how to do it properly on Instagram. I'd like to talk to you today about marketing opportunities offered by Instagram. I've divided my presentation into 3 sections: differences between social media, strategy, and advertising. Let's look at the content of Instagram. I'll try to quickly show the differences between Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Due to Facebook's acquisition of Instagram, more and more celebrities, bloggers, coaches, and companies became aware of this platform, mainly because it's perfect for increasing presence on the World Wide Web, building brand name awareness, and last but not least, it's an opportunity to interact with community. The most popular topics on Instagram are nutrition, health, sometimes it's fashion, but any company can gain more coverage regardless of the field of activity. This is also reflected in interactions. I'd like to draw your attention to this chart. A recently published study shows that one post can achieve 50 times more interaction with followers on Instagram than on Facebook. The main explanation for this is the structure of Instagram. There is no share function. Instead, in case of an interesting post, user accounts are linked with @sign. Then the linked user goes to the corresponding content. It can prove to be a more promising strategy than the Facebook share function because it's a direct connection between users. Furthermore, Instagram differs from other platforms because the profile of the account hardly offers settings. Only a short description of the profile with one link is allowed. For this reason, we should not regard Instagram as a hard-selling platform. Although we rarely sell directly from Instagram, thanks to it, we build relation with customers. In contrast to Instagram, Twitter is used for participating in discussions and talking about current matters. We cannot build such a private image on Twitter as on Instagram, but instead we can try to get involved in commenting on important matters or showing our brand from different angles. We can, for example, fight for the environment or stand by matters that are important for us from the public relations point of view. We can directly show our product, but we can share the idea behind it. That brings us to the second point, successful Instagram marketing strategy. Generally, we have to think about the goals we are pursuing with our Instagram account, about our strengths and what we would like to communicate. We can post effective content only when we know exactly what we want. It doesn't apply only to business accounts, but it's also important when we want to promote ourselves. Let's look at this in more detail. We can easily summarize the strategy of effective Instagram marketing in 3 points. And first is the orientation. What kind of posts are we thinking of? Should the post motivate or gain a positive impression or maybe tell a story? All of this has to be planned if we want to treat Instagram seriously. Secondly, I'd like to say a few words about regularity. Only those who are constantly present can leave a lasting impression in minds of their followers. It is not enough to be online once a month and upload 10 images in a row. Many accounts fall by the wayside because they do not pursue a long-term strategy. And last but not least is interaction. To build our own Instagram community, we should focus on Instagram with the followers. We have to be involved in commenting and replying to comments, and of course private messages. And we should do it obviously fast. Having mentioned the potential of Instagram and the rationale behind the marketing strategy, I would like to move on to advertising. There are a few types of advertising available on Instagram, and to illustrate this point, I'd like to show you some examples. The first one is active and passive advertising. In active advertising, we look for followers by ourselves. Using the hashtag function is really helpful because thanks to it we can find matching content and users that are associated with our profile or product or sometimes activities. This is also a way for people to find our profile because we have to remember also about hashtags under each post. When we get some users who seem interested in our content, we have to leave some comments and likes under their profiles. We have to show our presence all the time. Not everyone will respond by clicking the follow button, that's why we have to try as many times as is necessary. The difference between passive and active advertising is really simple because in passive advertising, we just use hashtags below our post and wait for new followers to come to our profile. Let's move on to the next point. It's a collaboration with other profiles. In addition to the interaction with other followers and potential followers, we should also get in touch with profiles that are similarly oriented as ours. We can do it by mentioning each other on our profiles or sometimes sending stuff to influencers. In both cases, we've got a great chance to expand the group of the followers. It is important to get in touch with other accounts because we can not only observe the competitor actions, but also share our fans sometimes. And the last one is cross-promotion. It is important to promote our business effectively, because and Instagram marketing should be an element of it, but it's important that it will not be the only one element. To reach larger and more diverse audience, we should also use other social media. However, every type of it has its own policy, and it also gathers a different type of audience, so the content should not be duplicated. If you are, for example, a blogger, then you can inform your Facebook fans and your Twitter followers that the new post is viable, or maybe sometimes a new product. But such posts have no place on Instagram, because here you have the place to appear much more personal. Okay, it all sounds very simple, but let's take a look at the Jagiellonian University account. How do university social media managers cope with a fan page with 16,000 followers? Let's take a closer look at their passive and active advertising. They use a proper amount of hashtags under each post, which definitely has an impact on the number of new followers. When it comes to passive advertising, they do it correctly. We can see that other profiles mark Jagiellonian University account in their post almost every day. Unfortunately, Jagiellonian University doesn't respond. So active advertising, it's not really well done in here. It's not an effective way of expanding a group for potential followers. So Jagiellonian University, you better brace yourselves, because Warsaw University is not idle. That brings me to the end of my presentation. Let me just run over the key points again. Firstly, I talked about the differences between social media platforms. I quickly told you about the differences between Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Secondly, I discussed Instagram marketing strategy and its main points. Thirdly, I looked at advertising and something we can undertake on our account. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. It was Sylwia Wołoch with her presentation Instagram marketing. Now we have a fourth person, which is Kamil Dziedzic, the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on Polish law and society.
Some difficulties with the presentation.
We cannot see it.
I know. I will try to launch it once again.
Okay, so you need to click OK. Center of your screen.
Sorry.
Yes. Exactly.
Okay, sorry. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Kamil and I study law at Jagiellonian University. And I would like to thank you very much for the opportunity to speak at this competition. It's a great privilege and pleasure for me. COVID-19 or coronavirus disease 2019 is an acute infectious respiratory disease caused by SARS-CoV-2 virus, first diagnosed and described in November 2019 in central China in city Wuhan. Well, I would love to start my speech, my presentation with these words, but unfortunately I don't need to do this. Why? Because we all know what is it. It appeared suddenly and wreaked havoc in every corner of our planet. Because of it, we have been wearing masks and conducting online classes for almost a year. It's because of it we have met here at Teams, not in the building of our university. Ladies and gentlemen, today I would like you to present the most important changes in Polish law caused by coronavirus pandemic. They said that the pandemic has affected every fragment of our lives, so the changes in law are huge. In fact, this topic would be suitable for several master theses in various areas of law. In my work, I would like to focus on the most important areas of law and most significant changes. I will start with the changes introduced by the Act on Special Solutions related to the prevention and combating of COVID-19 and other infectious diseases, and the emergencies caused by them in the field of labor law. Article 3 of this Act introduces a definition of remote work. According to this regulation, the employer may instruct the employee to perform for a specific period of time work specified in the employment contract outside of the place of its permanent performance. For this purpose, the employee must have appropriate skills to perform remote work, as well as appropriate technical capabilities and premises. The type of work must also allow it to be performed remotely. Pursuant to the Act, the tools and materials needed to perform remote work and logistic services for remote work are provided by the employer. Of course, when performing remote work, an employee may use tools or materials not provided by the employer, but then he must provide himself the respect and protection of confidential information, other legally protected secrets, including business secrets, personal data, as well as information, the disclosure of which could expose the employer to risk or harm. The current legal status doesn't provide any additional benefits for employees who work on their own equipment. There are no grounds for claiming the costs or operating the equipment or electricity costs. Any reimbursements, of course, will depend each time on individual agreements with the employer. And this brings me to the next point of my presentation, and it will be housing law and property law. Here I would like to highlight a few important points. And firstly, the Act made it possible to extend the lease of premises for several months under the existing conditions. There was no need to conclude future contracts between the tenant and the landlord. The extension was based on the tenant's declaration of will. Secondly, in accordance with Article 15GB of the Act, the collection of rent, lease and occupancy payments due to the state treasury was temporarily waived. Of course, one more time under several conditions. Among others, it was depend to the notification to the appropriate mayor or the city president, and the lack of arrears in tax obligations of insurance contributions. Third, the possibility of terminating the lease agreement and the amount of the rent were limited, as well as the eviction was prohibited. Fourth, the fees due for perpetual usufruct have been reduced. As for civil law, the only change was once again delaying the entry into force the Article 385 Index 5 of the Civil Code. Major changes took place in the civil procedure, and firstly, hearing or a public hearing is now conducted with the use of technical devices that enable them to be held at the distance with the direct transmission of image and sound. Persons participating in the hearing don't have to be in the building of court. The chairman may order a closed session if he considers that the examination of the case is necessary, and the conduct of the hearing or a public hearing required by law could pose an excessive threat to health or of the persons participating in them and cannot be conducted remotely with direct transmission, video and sound. If there are any special circumstances, members of the panel, with the exception of chairman and the case speaker, may participate in the meeting by electronic means of communication, except the meeting at which the hearing is closed. In practice, courts across the country have restricted all hearings and meetings except the hearings in camera have been cancelled. Restrictions apply only to public hearings attended by people from all over the country. Judges work all the time and can also work remotely. Still, in accordance with the ordinances, usual matters are dealt with, including arrests, care, family and care matters, or those relating to the mentally ill. Well, let me move to the next issue, which discusses medical law. Doctors involved in the fight against the pandemic received additional benefits in amount of 100% of the current salary. The next is a lack of criminal liability of doctors during COVID-19 pandemic. And here I mean exclusion of criminal liability for specific acts committed by medical professionals when medical activities are undertaken to combat COVID-19 epidemic. In case of providing services by people who in non-epidemic conditions wouldn't provide these services, and for example, doctors during their specialization or doctors in other than their specialization. The Act also includes provision on facilitating the employment of specialist doctors in Poland who obtained professional qualifications outside the European Union, and they will be able to be employed in the healthcare system, the Polish healthcare system, after fulfillment of few statutory requirements. For example, they have to provide that they have at least 3 years of professional experience as a specialist doctor. It's also worth mentioning here about the appeal of the Ministry of Health, which asked all medical universities to prepare a list of students willing to work with COVID-19 patients. The ministry appealed to students of last 2 years, which for many months have been involved in supporting medical institutions, including COVID departments. Students who apply to work in combating pandemic will have the period of work counted towards apprenticeship, and in addition they will receive remuneration in the amount of not less than 200% of the average basic salary provided for a given position. Well, of course, the wearing of masks was introduced, and the organization and participation in assemblies was forbidden. Trade restrictions were introduced, restaurants, bars and discos were closed. There may be a limited number of customers in shops. And the last thing I would like to say that the Ministry of Culture announced granting 400 million of Polish zloty of aid to artists. The Culture Support Fund supports the entire wide cultural sector, not just individual artists. The money from the fund are intended to support ongoing music, theater and dance activities. Well, ending, I think that the introduced changes are very important for the development of law in Polish, and what can I say? I'm sure that the sum of this solution will stay with us permanently, and I think that's it. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much. It was Kamil Dziedzic with his presentation, The Impact of COVID-19 Pandemic on Polish Law and Society. Ladies and gentlemen, we are already halfway there. Now I would like to present the awards based on the jury verdict. The first prize for the participation for 2 semesters, 108 lesson units in a language course organized by Jagiellonian Language Center. The winner may choose any group included in the offer of publicly available courses in a given academic year. Second prize, participation for 1 semester, 54 lesson units in a course of the selected language organized by the organizer. The winner may choose any group included in the offer of publicly available courses in a given academic year. The third prize, participation for 1 semester, 54 lesson units in a course of the selected language organized by the organizer. The winner also may choose any group included in the offer of public courses in a given academic year. What is more, we have additional prize. The 3 winners can participate in one-time individual training sessions with a member of the TEDx Krakow team to discuss the speeches and further skills training. What is more, we have also Audience Award. This is a set of the gifts, for example, wireless presenter with a laser pointer, Caprine power bank, and Abrante set containing a notebook with a pen. So, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite now the 5th person, which is Anna Kulma, with her presentation, How to Discuss Effectively.
Yes, I'm here. Just give me a minute. Okay. Do you see my presentation?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Please turn on full screen.
Yeah, okay. So, good afternoon. My name is Anna and I study journalism and social communication. I'm glad to be here and I believe that you might be interested in the topic of my presentation, which is not only how to discuss, but how to discuss effectively. And let me show you the presentation plan. My speech consists of 3 parts, which are named Why do people think they argue? Why do people actually argue? And can quarreling be a sport? And going to the first point. A psychologist at Auckland University, Guilherme Lopes, asked university students to nominate hundreds of topics they thought that married couple might argue about. They then create a list of over 80 possibilities in order to check which ones would be the most common among 107 heterosexual couples from the local area who got married in the past year. So topping of the list is feeling that their partner does not pay enough attention or have enough affection for them. Other main sources of disagreement are based around sex, money, control, jealousy, and household. So we've had the reasons why people think they argue. So now let's focus on the causes of the arguments itself. I'm going to point out 8 reasons why people actually argue. There are my own observations, but they are based on scientific reports. So the first one is automatic thinking. And according to Daniel Gilbert's theory, initially, we believe everything we see or hear. Then we evaluate and, if necessary, reject the untruth. Unfortunately, the judging and rejecting phase takes time and effort. So if the listeners are, for example, tired, they are likely to believe the false information. And of course, this can lead to the arguments in the future. The Iceberg theory is quite well known. It says that if for sometimes we hide the fact that we feel stressed, disappointed, overwhelmed, or guilty or embarrassed, we accumulate these emotions in ourselves, and then we explode and externalize, and we only present the tip of the iceberg. So an impact on our partner, for instance, will be very distorted. The third one is based on British psychologist Basil Bernstein's theory. He claimed that depending on our family homes habits, we use restricted or elaborated codes. Restricted codes users are less likely to understand metaphors and phrases. Because of that, disagreements may occur in the discussion between people from different groups. And another obvious one is stereotype. It is really hard to get rid of, and sometimes we don't even know that our language is stereotype. For example, when someone starts arguing, we call this person drama queen instead of, for example, drama king. By this linguistic treatment, we suggest that women more often argue without any particular reasons, which is harmful. And one of the most alarming one is attention span. Did you know that some institutions have reduced their lectures to only 15 minutes? It's based upon the common knowledge and consensus that there is a decline in students' attention to 10 or 15 minutes into lectures. So from my point of view, I think that the popularity of TED Talks, for example, seems to confirm this. The phenomenon of understatement may be related to irony. The understatement is especially tricky when it comes to the online communication. And I think that we know how many arguments take place online. Internet users even came up with a certain rule. It is called Poe's law. And according to this, without a clear indicator of the author's intent, it is impossible to create a parody of extreme views, because the parody can be mistaken by some readers for a sincere expression of the author's views. Okay, so going to the next one, monologue and active listening. Australian philosopher Martin Buber claimed that people were defined by their relationships. In this theory, your I must be dedicated to the other person's I. Only in this way, you have a chance to create a real dialogue. Some people get rid of this opportunity by uttering only their own long monologues. And the last one, and my favorite one, is framing or defining, and it's about putting discussion in some common frames. And now please, ask yourself how many times during quarrel you realized you had made a mistake, but you were too stubborn to admit it. A great illustration of the problem are taxes. The Polish researchers checked whether Polish people prefer a progressive or a flat tax system. The results show that support depends on the wording of the question. When the question clarified the terms, support for flat increased attention threefold. So it's it's a lot. Okay. So the next point, the next part of my presentation is quarrel as a sport. And there are many ways in which you can learn and moreover practice cultural discussion. Across the world, there are numerous structured debates, such as Oxford-style debate, British parliamentary debate, APDA, or Lincoln-Douglas. But what these debate formulas have in common are certain rules according to which a debate is conducted. So there is a specific number of participants. This is strictly monitored time, and those debates have a clearly defined formula. So the question is, can we bring these sporting debate formulas to our daily discussion? And I have 5 advices. Firstly, at the debate, you have to introduce everybody to the way you understand the key definition. In the other words, you have to be sure that you are debating on the same topic. And it's advisable to adapt this rule into your informal discussions. Secondly, it's about the timing and taking turns. These elements prevent the speakers from doing monologues or losing attention. In so-called family arguments, try to control your talking time and do not abuse your listeners' patience. Thirdly, this is a in a formal debate, you have a possibility to ask questions, but they have to be short and precise. Moreover, you can ask them only when the opponent allows you to do so. And again, I strongly recommend asking questions without interrupting. Fourthly, if you really want to argue with someone, you have to be good at active listening. In a debate, during your speech, it is necessary to paraphrase the opponent's words. And to be honest, in any discussion, paraphrasing is the key to effective communication. And fifthly, last but not least, of course, control your emotions. Don't get angry during the discussion. And I think that this one was pretty obvious. So on this slide, you may see some example of Oxford-style debate theses. The first two are from so-called the media world, and the other two are from cinema world. So minute for you, maybe not minute, but a few seconds for reading. Oh, it was a pause. Okay, so now going to the conclusion, how to discuss effectively. So this is the main message from my presentation. Learn from professionals and develop your critical thinking by asking yourself if your arguments are not based on false assumptions, if you listened to your opponent partner carefully, if you both understand the topic the same, if you are more rational than emotional. And I have an exercise for you. So now think about a strong point of view that you have, please, and ask yourself if are you able to describe it properly, shortly, non-emotionally, patiently. Can you answer questions precisely and try to understand other side's point of view without being judgmental? What does your body language say about this view when you try to present it? Let's check. I know that maybe now it will be hard, but try to face your view and talk to yourself in the mirror. And I assure you the result will be surprising and inspiring. And to sum up my presentation, I want to leave you with this inspiring quote about dialogue. So in true dialogue, both sides are willing to change. And now here you may see the sources which I used. If you have any questions or reflections, please let me know via this email. I hope you learn how to discuss effectively, but if you have any doubts, please contact me. I will test you, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It was Anna Kulma with her presentation, How to Discuss Effectively. Now we have another person, Magda Wysse, with her presentation, What Makes Us Human?
Good afternoon. I hope you can see the screen. All right, I hope now it works.
Yes.
Fantastic. Humanity, an abstract, wordplay fully intended, because while the presentation is supposed to be an overview of my research work on what makes us human, what I would like to do today is try to grasp this intuitive yet quite elusive concept that humanity is. Humanity, a noun, according to Merriam-Webster, the totality of human beings, the human race, humankind. And this definition tells us basically nothing. Thankfully, I found two others which were a bit more helpful. Compassionate, sympathetic, or generous behavior or disposition, the quality or state of being human. Now, those are far more interesting because they tell us there is a disposition, there is certain state, that there is certain condition upon which we deem ourselves human. Now, my search for this condition was started with resorting to my favorite source of knowledge, my mom. I asked her, "Mommy, what makes us human?" My mom said, "Higher emotions." Now, this is a fantastic answer because if you know, as psychologists, you know that we love to talk about emotions, so we can understand my excitement. Paul Ekman distinguished 6 basic emotions: happiness, sadness, fear, anger, surprise, and disgust.
Sorry to interrupt, Magda.
Yes.
I'm afraid your slides aren't moving.
Oh no.
Yeah, probably your
Please check
presentation
it.
froze. Yeah.
Oh gosh.
And make it also the full view.
Will now it work?
Exactly, perfect.
Sorry. So yes, the 6 emotions distinguished by Paul Ekman: happiness, sadness, fear, anger, surprise, and disgust. Those are supposed to be easily recognized by their facial expressions by all people and some animals, regardless of where they were born or what culture they were raised in. But this is not exactly what we were supposed to talk about. We're supposed to talk about higher emotions, about compassion, about maliciousness, about jealousy, about mercy. Those are recognized by determining the activity in neocortex, which is basically the newest region, the newest structure developed by human brain. They are much more difficult to spot, and they are culturally specific. In Japanese, there is an emotion called amae, which is a sense of joy derived from community. And in Portuguese, there's saudade, which is a longing for something lost at the sea. This all boils down to the fact they are subjective. This isn't quite satisfying for me, because does that mean that the Japanese are more human than the Portuguese, or am I less human than all of them because I can't feel saudade? So this didn't really quell my interest. I decided to turn to something I know, I feel well with. I decided to turn to the brain. Now, a human brain is just a big primate brain. Not that proud to admit, but an average primate weighs 25 kilograms, and a primate brain weighs half a kilogram, around 2% of the body mass, with a brain of 53 billion neurons. Now, an average human body mass is 66 kilograms and a brain weighing 1.5 kilograms, and again, around 2% of the body mass, 86 billions of neurons. Now, a brain is a very specific structure in our organism because it creates an incredible energetic cost. For being just 1% of the body mass, it consumes 80% of the energy used by the whole body. To sustain the brain of 53 billion neurons, primates spend 8 hours every day just eating. And this is the maximum a mammal digestive system can process. Now, for 86 billion neurons, we supposedly should be spending more time eating. Now, we don't. What is more, we know we spend less time eating. Now, why is it? When you look at the stages of development of a brain, you can see that at the very beginning, the growth was quite linear. But then something happened, something incredible occurred between Homo erectus and Homo neanderthalis that caused an incredible boost in brain mass. Now, Dr. Susanna Hirtulano-Husel says that this incredible event was learning how to cook, learning how to process food with temperature. Cooking makes food basically pre-digested. It's softer and also has a changed chemical structure. According to the findings of American Agricultural Society, the food, when it's being processed with temperature, can double or triple its calorie value. But also it's softer, so it's easier to chew. And essentially, we are using less of the energy we are trying to gain. So it's kind of as if we were eating more in less time. Having more energy derived from eating lets us sustain more neurons, and having more neurons gives us better cognitive abilities. So we can write poems, we can be philosophers. I can talk about the way my brain works while using my brain and also thinking about other things. It's incredible. But it still doesn't really answer the question what makes us human, because we have this deep sense of grandiosity. We feel special. And I wouldn't really like to bow to my cooker. That's not really proud. And at this point, I realized by looking at what makes us human, there's one question I should have asked myself at the very, very beginning. When I'm looking for what makes us human, I should have checked, what do we consider as inhuman? Now, according to Merriam-Webster again, inhuman is lacking pity, lacking kindness, or lacking mercy, which is a bit absurd, because from evolutionary perspective, pity, kindness, or mercy were not the things that helped us evolve. What helped us was aggression, prejudice, and yet what we understand as humans, what we associate with our nature, is compassion, is being able to be sympathetic, is being generous. Now, I asked myself, why? Why, after centuries of using aggression, of reactions based on fear, of throwing away everything that seems unfamiliar because that may cause a danger, after centuries of doing so well in preserving our life, why would we turn to something completely different? When I asked my friends what makes us human, just action of desperation at that point, they told me higher emotions, they told me ability to love, they told me being able to reason, but also to go against reason. No one, and I asked many people, no one said egoism. No one pointed at those negative correlations of our nature, at what constituted a big part of our history. And here is who came with aid. Erwin Raphael McManus, an American preacher, he says that what makes us so special is our ability to imagine us as better than we are. This is the key to our humanity, because we have those incredible cognitive abilities that come with a number of our neurons. They allow us to create complex constructs and also create deeper relationships built on compassion or infatuation, higher emotions. And also that lets us turn away from the violent, egoistic history and turn to the future, which is compassionate, which is led by generosity and sympathy. So perhaps what makes us human is evolving. What makes us human is being a work in progress. And with all the idealism of not a scientist, but just a very young person, perhaps a finished product of a human is just a good person. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It was Magda Wysy with her presentation, What Makes Us Human. The seventh person, Anna Sajek, with her presentation, The Difficult Heritage of Dictatorship, The Case of Spain.
I'm sharing the screen. So, good evening, everyone. My name is Anna, and I'm currently studying intercultural relations at the Jagiellonian University. And today, as someone who was born and raised in Spain, I wanted to talk to you about the difficult heritage of dictatorship, the Francoist dictatorship. So first, I wanted to explain what is difficult heritage. So it's an issue that has been brought by many authors, but Sharon MacDonald was the first one to name it when studying the difficult heritage of the city of Nuremberg in Germany. So as she stated in 2007 in the ICMAH conference, quote, the difficult heritage is concerned with histories and past that do not easily fit with self-identities of the groups of whose past or histories they are part. So these stories have usually a negative impact on our self-images, on the self-images of those groups, and may cause conflicts and provoke disruptions in the self-image. So after having this in mind, I wanted to explain who is Franco, to talk to you about who is Franco. So Francisco Franco Bahamonde was born in February in 1892, and since his very early years, he wanted to follow his father's path and become a Marine, but he ended up in the infantry. So he wasn't very, his grades were below average. He didn't stand out above other students. But it was after moving to Africa for work campaigns, he became general, and that was a new turn in his military career. So the Spanish Civil War was what brought first Franco to power, and the Civil War started in 1936 and lasted for 3 years until 1939. This conflict was characterized by repressions taken by against each side of the conflict, the so-called Red and White Terror. So the Red Terror was the repressions and crimes committed by the Republican band, and the White Terror was the one made by the nationalist side, and it would last for years after the Civil War. So after Franco's death in 1975, Juan Carlos I, the Bourbon, became the King of Spain. And that was the beginning of the so-called Transición Española, which was the transition into democracy. And during that time, and from that time, a lot of laws were approved. But I wanted to focus on the 3 ones that are displayed on the slide. So the Spanish 1977 amnesty law
didn't allow the Spanish courts to investigate the crimes committed before 1976. This was and is criticized by Spanish organizations and international organizations, because nowadays they can still not investigate the crimes committed in the past. So the second law is the historical memory law, approved in 2007 in order to compensate the victims, but also to deal with the difficult heritage that we did inherit from the dictatorship. And also last year, at the very ending of 2020, the Democracy Memory Act draft was approved, and it follows the path of the 2007 memory law, historical memory law, but it goes quite further, as it includes the recommendations from the United Nations, the Council of Europe, and the European Parliament. So the first thing I wanted to talk to you about are the mass graves in Spain. So there are over 2,500 mass graves all over Spain, and some associations that are focused on the historical memory law, in the historical memory, they say that there are over 100,000 bodies buried in them. So, sorry. This is a very thorny topic and has brought a lot of, I'm sorry. So the Valle de los Caídos, oh yes, I'm sorry for this disruption, but in the 2007 memory law did offer grants to organizations to exhume the bodies and look for the graves. But it was criticized by international organizations that the exhumation was privatized, and the government wanted to change that and nationalize the process of exhuming the bodies. So the second thing I wanted to discuss is the Valle de los Caídos, which is a monumental located in the municipality of San Escorial, and that was built by decree signed by Franco in 1940. In 1940, and as the name of the decree stated, it was to commemorate the fallen during the Glorious Crusade. So the concept of crusade was usually used by the nationalists, as they saw that they were defending the homeland and the religion from the atheists and communists. So this whole structure was built both by faith workers and prisoners, which were mostly political prisoners between 1940 and 1959. And in 1959, a decision was made to move all of the bodies of the fallen during the Civil War from both bands to the valley, even without the consent of their living relatives. So they say that this is the biggest mass grave located in Spain, as from the 33,000 bodies that were moved there, over 1,200 bodies are still unidentified. So it is meant to change the meaning of this place by explaining everyone the reason and purpose why this was built, this construction was built. And this comes with the new Democracy Memory Act. The next thing I wanted to discuss are the remains of Franco, which were buried in the Valley of the Fallen until after his death. So it was a very conflictive discussion, and it was discussed by politicians for a long time, because according to the 2000 memory law, Franco's body had to be exhumated. But some parties said that it was unnecessary, and that it would just bring discussions and open old wounds. Even Franco's family did oppose, but eventually his remains were moved to the cemetery on the outskirts of Madrid. So at the very end, I wanted to tell you that after 13 years of approving the memory law, there are still a lot of relics of the Francoist dictatorship. As we can see in the slide here, this is a monument to victory, also known as Monument to Franco, that is located in Santa Cruz de Tenerife. And as you can see, it's an angel carrying a male figure that is supposed to be Franco, and it's still displayed in the Canary Island. Then we also have this monument, which is the Arco de la Victoria, which was built to commemorate a victory of the Francoist troops in Madrid in one of the battles of the Civil War. And this one here that we can see and someone can visit if he wants to, it's a pyramid built to commemorate the Italian soldiers fallen during the Civil War. And also there are other relics like the Francoist emblems, Francoist coat of arms that can be found on different buildings. So this one was taken down in 2018 after some discussions, and there are still over 1,000 street names, for example, after the key figures of the Francoist dictatorship. And also the Ministry of Justice issued an order to remove the Francoist relics to 656 local authorities. So it's a lot that it's still displayed all around Spain. So I wanted to finish my presentation by asking you that if you think that this is a good way to deal with difficult heritage. I mean, do you think that exhuming Franco's body, exhuming the mass graves, and removing those coat of arms and other emblems are a good way to deal with this heritage, or is it just an unnecessary? Is it just unnecessary, and it's just opening all wounds? So, thank you a lot for your attention, and I hope you enjoyed my presentation.
Thank you so much. It was Anna Sajek with her presentation, The Difficult Heritage of Dictatorship, the Case of Spain. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the last person, Jagoda Zimała, with her presentation, How Everyone Became a Psychologist.
Good evening. Thank you very much. In a second, you will see my presentation. All right. It should work right now. Not from thank you very much. That's not the proper slide. Let's start again. All right. Hello, my name is Jagoda, and today I would like to tell you about my great passion, that is psychology. And the topic of my presentation is how everyone became a psychologist. And I will try to show you, because I really believe that that statement is maybe bold, but it is true. So my great passion about psychology is that it is literally everywhere. Even when we clean our hands, when we clean our apartment, or even when we take a walk, it is literally everywhere. But most of all, it is in pop culture. And this is why I used the word everyone, because I will use examples of very known characters that I am sure that most of us, if not everyone, as I mentioned, know them. And I will try to show that subconsciously pop culture harvested us as psychologists, or in a less metaphorical manner of speaking, just more empathetic people. and what is ahead of us. My general idea for this presentation is to use the knowledge from DSM-5, which is diagnosing manual used by psychiatrists and psychologists from all over the world. And based on the knowledge from DSM-5, I will show those characters that my little furry friends that I will introduce to you in a second, that they suffer from mental health problems. So what do I mean? These are my special guests. I will start from basics, and it will be the family from Winnie the Pooh. Then I will go to Cruella de Vil, and then Ariel, the Little Mermaid, and Gollum will be our last, and my and your last guest. So let's begin. I would like to start, as I said, with basics. I don't know if you heard, but I am pretty sure that you did, about a personality test based on a theory that 100-acre wood is a delusional experience of Christopher. And it may sound funny or even delusional, but no, in fact, I claim, and most of people in the internet claim, that Christopher suffers from schizophrenia. But I would like to add that from psychological view, it's not schizophrenia in the literal manner of speaking, because there are little groups in DSM-5 that are linked to schizophrenia, and the special disorder that Christopher suffers from is delusional disorder. Because to recognize schizophrenia, we should recognize a lot of more symptoms. And I am sure that you heard that Winnie the Pooh suffers from bulimia or honey addiction. Piglet has generalized anxiety. Rabbit is a perfect example of OCD, and this acronym stands for obsessive compulsive disorder. Tigger has ADHD, and Eeyore, the saddest character, has depression. So that are my basics, because I think, and I found that the most popular theory. And now my main arguments, and my first guest, which is Cruella de Vil. I will move directly to DSM-5 because there are some facts about a person with antisocial personality disorder, which Cruella de Vil has and suffers from, and I will state those facts from DSM-5. And a person with antisocial personality disorder pervasively and habitually disregards and violates other people's personal space. This person very often commits crimes or criminal behaviors. This person is lying, deceptive, and manipulating people, very often for self-amusement or self-gain. And that is very, very, very scary sometimes to be around that kind of person. And the most important thing, that there is lack of remorse. And we have to remember that, because in a case of Cruella de Vil, this is the most visible thing, that there is no remorse. So doesn't that ring a bell? Because I think that we, in our day-to-day life, we can feel that some traits can be spotted in some people. And in pop culture, not only antagonists have mental problems, as I want to show you is that mental problems are not always something linked with being an antagonist. My next guest is in fact very charming young lady, and this is Ariel the Little Mermaid. Her disorder is body dysmorphic disorder. It stands for BDD. And the person with this kind of disorder suffers from very terrible distress. And while a healthy person feels degree of doubt about some traits in her body image or his body image, the person with body dysmorphic disorder has persistent and intrusive thoughts. And this is very important because there is a huge difference between just a degree of doubt and this and those intrusive and persistent thoughts. And how Ariel became fixated? She despised her tail, and she learned about humans, and she saw that they have legs, and she fell in love, and then bam, her fixation began. And this is something that is very strong, and this is very visible when we talk, for example, with some of our loved ones, even because this disorder is becoming more and more common in our society, especially. And my last guest, and maybe it's the most difficult case to touch, because Gollum is someone that is the most ambivalent personality in pop culture, at least for me, because he, on the one side, he's ruthless, but on the other side, he's suffering. And why is that? Because he has two personalities. And this is the case for dissociative identity disorder. And it is more commonly known. We don't use that name anymore, but it's most commonly known for multiple personality disorder. And DSM-5 states that the person with this disorder has at least two personalities, and one at a time is active. And this disorder is thought to be caused by a childhood trauma and strong traumatic emotions. And I think that this is the case for Gollum, as he experienced some very drastic events in his life. And on the one hand, I despise him, but on the other hand, I really pity Gollum. And to conclude this presentation, what is my message to you? I think that most of all, because of all those stories and the storytelling discussion that is coming from it, I think that we learned a lot, and I think that we became better people. We can take better care of ourselves because we don't feel that lonely. There is still a lot to do, but I think that the most important word that comes from those stories for me is empathy, and we are, I think, obligated with our intuition already that exercised is to be empathetic and not to think only in stereotypes. But I am sure that we already are doing it very well. So thank you very much, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It was Jagoda Zimała with her presentation, How Everyone Became a Psychologist. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I would like some activity from your side. So please make a heart reaction to show how nice, how good were all of those presentations. I want a lot of heart reactions in here. Thank you so much. Perfect. Perfect. I can see all of those hearts. Amazing. So right now, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to remind all of the participants with their topics. So the first person, it was Anna Zając with her presentation, Why Do We Sleep? Next person was Urszula Sieracka with her presentation, A Chinese International Relations Theory. Third person was Sylwia Wołoch with her presentation, Instagram Marketing. Then we had Kamil Dziedzic with his presentation, The Impact of the COVID-19 Pandemic on Polish Law and Society. The fifth person was Anna Kulma with her presentation, How to Discuss Effectively. Sixth person was Magda Łysy with her presentation, What Makes Us Human. The seventh person was Anna Sajek. The topic was The Difficult Heritage of Dictatorship, the Case of Spain. And the last person, it was Jagoda Zimała with her presentation, How Everyone Became a Psychologist. Thank you so much, all of the participants, for your effort. Now we will have a voting. Now the jury will go to another room for a little voting, and probably we will have some break right now. Maybe during this break there will be some announcements, and thank you once again. Can we have once again the dashboard with all of those people? Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, approximately in 2 minutes, we will share you the link where you can vote for the best participant. So I think so that we can switch to Polish right now. Szanowni Państwo, chciałbym przypomnieć, jakie nagrody mamy dzisiaj do zdobycia tak naprawdę. Niesamowite prezentacje, niesamowicie przygotowani uczestnicy, naprawdę wysoki poziom. Spośród nagród na podstawie werdyktu jury mamy nagrody takie jak za 3. miejsce mamy udział przez 1 semestr, to są 54 jednostki lekcyjne w kursie wybranego języka organizowanym przez JCJ. Zwycięzca może wybrać dowolną grupę znajdującą się w ofercie kursów ogólnodostępnych w danym roku akademickim. Jako nagroda za drugie miejsce to jest również udział przez 1 semestr, to są 54 jednostki lekcyjne w kursie wybranego języka organizowanego przez organizatora. Również zwycięzca może wybrać dowolną grupę znajdującą się w ofercie kursów ogólnodostępnych w danym roku akademickim. I nagroda za pierwsze miejsce jest to udział przez 2 semestry, to jest aż 108 jednostek lekcyjnych w kursie wybranego języka organizowanego przez JCJ. Zwycięzca również może wybrać sobie dowolną grupę znajdującą się w ofercie kursów ogólnodostępnych w danym roku akademickim. Co więcej, mamy dodatkową nagrodę dla 3 zwycięzców. Jest możliwość jednorazowego udziału w indywidualnych sesjach szkoleniowych z członkiem zespołu TEDx Kraków w celu omówienia wystąpień i dalszego szkolenia umiejętności. Szanowni Państwo, jak wszyscy wiecie, mamy również nagrodę publiczności. Jest to zestaw upominków, prezenter bezprzewodowy ze wskaźnikiem laserowym, który na pewno przyda się przy niejednej prezentacji. Dodatkowo mamy powerbank, kaprin oraz zestaw Abrantes zawierający notes z długopisem. Szanowni Państwo, za chwilkę zostanie zszerowany link na czacie. Możecie śmiało w niego wejść i zagłosować. Bardzo proszę o przełączenie zakładki, tak żebyśmy widzieli, jak mniej więcej to wygląda. Dziękuję serdecznie. Tak więc wybieramy, kto według Ciebie wystąpił z najlepszą prezentacją. Zaznaczamy, w zasadzie klikamy tak, żeby pojawiła się czarna kropeczka obok imienia i nazwiska uczestnika, a następnie klikamy prześlij. Jeżeli ktoś miałby problemy, to bardzo proszę zgłosić to. Na pewno w jakiś sposób postaramy się pomóc tutaj. Przypominamy jeszcze raz. Pierwszą osobą, która dzisiaj wystąpiła, była Anna Zając z prezentacją Why Do We Sleep. Drugą osobą była Urszula Sieracka, A Chinese International Relations Theory. Trzecią osobą była Sylwia Wołoch z prezentacją Instagram Marketing. Czwartą osobą był Kamil Dziedzic z prezentacją The Impact of the COVID-19 Pandemic on Polish Law and Society. Piątą osobą była Anna Kulma z prezentacją How to Discuss Effectively. Jako szósta wystąpiła Magda Łysy, What Makes Us Human. Jako siódma wystąpiła Anna Sajek, The Difficult Heritage of Dictatorship, The Case of Spain. I jako ostatnia, ósma osoba wystąpiła Jagoda Zimała z prezentacją How Everyone Became a Psychologist. Głosujemy, szanowni Państwo, i za jakiś czas zobaczymy wyniki tych głosów. Wylosujemy również nagrody publiczności. Nasze jury obraduje w tej chwili. Zapewne wszyscy w napięciu czekają na werdykt. Z tego miejsca, jako że mamy przerwę, chciałbym serdecznie wszystkim podziękować za udział w tym konkursie. Jako że mamy czas pandemii, jest to trudny czas, wszystkim udało się spotkać online, praktycznie bezproblemowo. Prezentacje wszystkie zostały przeprowadzone, także dziękuję serdecznie na chwilę obecną. No i tak jak powiedziałem wcześniej, czekamy na werdykt jury. A Państwa w tym czasie zachęcam do głosowania. Jak popatrzymy na czat, to widzę, że pani tutaj Katarzyna Opiela złożyła gratulacje dla wszystkich uczestników. Wonderful job, everyone. Tak więc bardzo proszę, zareagujmy serduszkami na ten komentarz. Na pewno pani Katarzyna również się z tego ucieszy. Wejdź w link, kliknij kropeczkę obok nazwiska, które według Ciebie miało najlepszą prezentację, a następnie klikamy przycisk poniżej prześlij.
Ja potwierdzam, że bardzo się cieszę i już zagłosowałam.
Świetnie, serdecznie dziękujemy pani Katarzyno. Jeżeli ktoś z Państwa ma problemy z głosowaniem, bardzo prosimy o zgłoszenie tego. A jeżeli nie, to bardzo się cieszymy. Patrząc na cały konkurs tak z perspektywy uczestnika, bo kiedyś sam również uczestniczyłem w tym konkursie, w tym wydarzeniu, to przyznam szczerze, że prezentowanie online jest naprawdę wyzwaniem. Jest to duże wyzwanie, ponieważ wpływa na to wiele różnych czynników, ale patrząc na wszystkie prezentacje, które dzisiaj tu miały miejsce, to naprawdę każdy z Was poradził sobie naprawdę wybitnie z tym zadaniem. OK. Panie Rafale, bardzo bym prosił o przełączenie zakładki na Best UJ Presentation na głosowanie, żebyśmy jeszcze raz zobaczyli to. Tak jest, tak więc mieliśmy osoby takie jak Anna Zając, Urszula Sieracka, Sylwia Wołoch, Kamil Dziedzic, Anna Kulma, Magda Łysy, Anna Sajek, Jagoda Zimała. Kto nie zagłosował, głosujemy. A my tymczasem, panie Rafale, bardzo bym prosił, żebyśmy przełączyli na trzecią zakładkę, na nasze wideo. I to jest zwycięska prezentacja z ostatniego konkursu. To jest prezentacja pana Mateusza Czeczetkina i zachęcamy do zapoznania się z tym. Bardzo proszę, panie Rafale, żebyśmy to puścili. Jeżeli jest taka szansa, to super by było z głosem, jeżeli się uda. Chyba nie ma takiej możliwości, tak mi się wydaje. W razie czego możemy udostępnić ten link po prostu na czacie, tak żeby każdy z Państwa był w stanie zobaczyć sobie tą prezentację.
your level of happiness based on the wealth of a country that you come from. Sounds strange, but we have the data to prove it. Here is a map based on a Global Wealth Report 2018, where the darkest green indicates the richest countries and the darkest red indicates the poorest countries. And this is a map based on a World Happiness Report 2018, where the darkest blue indicates the happiest countries and the darkest red indicates the most unhappy countries. As you can see, there's quite a lot of overlap between these two maps. Does that mean that money can buy happiness? We'll come back to this. First, let me go to the beginning and introduce myself. My name is Mateusz Cieczetkin, and I'm a student of biology here at Jagiellonian University. Today, I want to talk to you about science, specifically fundamental science, specifically evolutionary psychology. Science is a method we use to explore and understand the world. Over the last few centuries that it has been around, it brought us many wonderful things such as airplanes and microwaves and antibiotics and vaccines. While many people are eager to deny scientific facts, few actually apply that belief in practice by refusing to use modern technology. At the end of the day, science is the best tool we have for improving our lives. However, not all science is created equal, and I'm not talking here about pseudoscience. Generally speaking, we split science into applied, which creates solutions for problems we have, and fundamental, which aims to broaden our understanding of the world. And the latter gets a bit of a bad rap, in my opinion. When I say fundamental science, does it make you think of Stephen Hawking and theoretical physics and black holes, or does it make you think British scientists discover? Argentinian scientists, in this case, discovered that Viagra cures jet lag in hamsters. Fascinating. Is this more than just a waste of time and money? Some people say that we should only invest in research with obvious practical applications, but the thing is, you can't always anticipate the ramifications of your work. Barnett Rosenberg was studying the effects of electrical fields on the division of bacteria and ended up discovering cisplatin, a chemotherapy drug, which became the first effective method of therapy for testicular cancer. Of course, not everyone is so lucky. Some scientists dedicate their entire lives to a specific discipline and never end up discovering anything useful. The Nobel Prize, which is the highest honor for a scientist, is awarded disproportionately towards applied research, and so are research funds. If you discover something quirky and curious and theoretical, you're more likely to get the Ig Nobel Prize, which, to be honest, to me at least, looks a bit more fun than the Nobel Prize, but it is quite clear what society values more. And that brings us to my favorite science, evolution. The theory of evolution was perhaps the most important discovery in the history of biology, and it is mostly theoretical as opposed to applied. If you were to ask me, what is it for exactly? I could easily point out that studying evolution helps us create better crops to feed the planet or fight terrible infectious diseases. However, I have another answer in mind. I think we need evolution to discover crucial truths about the human nature. And I have the cases to prove my point. Let's start with something easy and uncontroversial, shall we? Morality. It is believed by many to be the quintessential human trait, something that separates us from other animals, even elevates us to a place above them. However, biology tells us that morality is a quite widespread feature of social species. For example, capuchin monkeys can tell what's fair. When in a social setting they discover that someone else is being treated better than them for no reason, they protest. Vampire bats share their gruesome meals with friends to help them get through the day, and eventually said friend returns the favor. There are many benefits to living in groups. It provides protection in numbers, aids in searching for food, makes rearing the young easier, and it is not a zero-sum game. The overall benefit is greater than the sum of its parts. If an individual is more likely to cooperate and play by the group rules, they are also more likely to survive and pass on their genes. And that's how morality evolved. Even altruism, when it is reciprocated, can be an incredible survival boost, and that applies to humans as well. We are a profoundly social species. Cooperation and communication in group are what made us so successful. Of course, I don't think that that fact makes us any less special. No other animal has a system of morality as complex and nuanced as ours. However, it does tell us that being kind is part of our nature, that morality, for most of us at least, is literally in our blood, or rather in our DNA. Now for another trait that many of us like to think of as distinctly human, romantic love. Biologically speaking, it is an intricate biochemical process that involves the release of various substances such as endorphins, oxytocin, and dopamine. In a given species, it exists when several key factors are present. The animal reproduces sexually, both parents are involved in child rearing, and the offspring are few in number and require intense parental care. Romantic love makes sure that the parents stay together to bring up the child, a task that is among the hardest I can think of. Surprisingly enough, most of our ape cousins don't tend to form long-term romantic relationships. While baby orangutans and chimps have extended childhoods, they become relatively independent soon after birth, holding on to the mother's fur as she traverses the forest in search of food. But humans are different. Millions of years ago, our ancestors were forced to abandon the forest and venture into the open savanna. As an adaptation, our heads grew bigger to accommodate the massive brain, but our hips became more narrow to aid in bipedal locomotion. All of that meant that human infants were born with small, underdeveloped brains and remained completely helpless for months. They couldn't hold on to anything and had to be carried around instead, making it difficult for the mother to search for food. And that's when romantic love came to aid. While the father was infatuated with his spouse, he happily provided both her and their child with nourishment, helping them survive. So, as it turns out, romantic love in humans is tied to our ridiculously big brains. Now back to the beginning. What I've told you about the correlation between wealth and happiness is true. This is something we see both on the level of a country and on the level of an individual. For example, this Princeton study discovered that as your income goes up, your measures of well-being also go up. Now, having learned a few things about evolutionary psychology today, does that make you skeptical? I mean, money did not exist thousands of years ago in the African savanna. The closest we have to humans in the natural habitat are modern hunter-gatherer tribes, and they live in some of the poorest countries of the world and sometimes don't have a concept of money to begin with. Are they doomed to misery? Well, back to that Princeton study, it does have a few caveats. First of all, that line doesn't go up indefinitely. It actually stops and levels out at around $75,000 annual income. After that, any additional money that you earn has diminishing returns. It doesn't make you any happier. That makes sense. I mean, money can buy you a lot of things, and financial security is a great stress reliever, but it can't buy you everything. In that same study, they discovered that other factors had a huge influence on your emotional well-being. Things such as your health, both physical and mental, and your social security, whether you were happily married or recently divorced. Being rich does not spare you the misery of life and fortunes. Happiness is a product of evolution. Like all emotions, it exists to communicate something to us. It communicates that we are fulfilling all of our physiological and psychological needs. Needs that are also the product of natural selection. Good nutrition, exercise, a community, a place to call home, family, friendship, love, the feeling of being useful, of helping others and following your passions. Is this the entire answer to the problem of human misery? Of course not, but it's a good place to start. We didn't invent science as our means towards the latest iPhone. It is a product of another deeply ingrained need of ours, the need to learn new things. Humans are an incredibly curious species. After all, why would they ever leave Africa if not to see what else was out there? That's why I think that fundamental science is just as important as applied science. In my personal life, I am definitely driven by my curiosity. I will never know everything, but I learn something new every day. And that makes me very happy indeed. Thank you for your attention.
Szanowni Państwo, głosowanie powoli dobiega ku końcowi. Czekamy na te wyniki z niecierpliwością. Mam informację z reżyserki, można powiedzieć, że jeszcze 1 minuta potrzebna jest na to, żebyśmy dowiedzieli się, jaki tutaj mamy werdykt. Sam czas poświęcony przez jury pokazuje, że werdykt z pewnością nie był łatwy. Bardzo wysoki poziom, bardzo fajni uczestnicy, wysoki poziom prezentacji i tak jak napisała wcześniej pani Katarzyna, wonderful job everyone.
Welcome to the Jagiellonian University in Kraków, Poland. The Jagiellonian University links tradition with the future. Why? Well, it celebrated its 650th anniversary in 2014, but naturally it looks forward to the future. The Jagiellonian Language Center is an interfaculty university unit which provides language services for 11 university faculties. That means teaching about 11,000 students a year. This is our statutory mission. We operate in the old center of Kraków and at the university's new campus. At present, we teach 11 languages, though, historically speaking, it was Latin that constituted the lingua academica. So let us start with Latin.
Omnes ad Universitatem Jagiellonicam invitamus preclare est lingvam latinam discere.
Do you know any Norwegian? Well, it is true, English is the most popular choice nowadays. But do you know any Esperanto?
Saluton, ni invitas ĉiujn al kursoj de Esperanto en la Jagiellona Lingva Centro de la Jagiellona Universitato. Valoras lerni ĉi tie la lingvon, ĉar ni estas aliaj.
We run language courses for academic staff and for the local community.
Why study English at JCJ? Because of the staff, the commitment, the difference, the fact that it's an enjoyable and challenging experience.
Allora, dopo il latino devo dire io insegno l'italiano e insegno all'Università Jagiellonica di Cracovia, alla Scuola di Lingue, e vi invito a studiare l'italiano qui. Benvenuti a Краковья.
Здравствуйте. Приглашаем вас на курсы русского языка в наш Jagiellonский центр. Языковой Jagiellonский центр работает уже несколько лет. Нам будет приятно вас видеть, слышать, научим вас правильно говорить на русском языке, покажем чудесный Краков и будем очень-очень рады вас приветствовать. Ждем вас всех. До встречи.
Si vous voulez apprendre l'une des plus belles langues du monde, si vous aimez la chanson française, Jacques Brel, Edith Piaf, Charles Aznavour, vous êtes invité à venir chez nous pour découvrir la richesse de la civilisation française dans Jagiellońskie Centrum Językowe.
Ich bin aus der deutschen Sektion des Institutes, des Spracheninstitutes an der Jagiellonen-Universität.
Okay, so we are back. The jury has taken the decision, but first let me share my screen to show you the result of the voting of the audience. There it is. Okay, as you can see, the highest result, the award goes to Magda Łyssy. Okay, the second place is Kamil Dziedzic, and the third one,
very much.
Sylwia Wołoch and Ania Kulma. All right, so Magda, congratulations.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Let's make as much as possible reactions, hearts, applause. I want to see that, really, really. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you.
All right, so the president of the jury, Professor Jadłowiec, floor is yours, please.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my great pleasure and honor to acclaim our best presenters today through the announcement of the winners, which I'm going to make shortly. But before I do it, I would like to take this opportunity to express my sincere thanks to the organizers of this event, the devoted and dedicated teachers of the Jagiellonian Language Center, and especially its director, Mrs. Dominika Stopa. Also, thank you very much to the TEDx group and for all the support that the Jagiellonian University receives in this respect. Thank you very much for all your efforts to make this such a worthwhile event and experience, which has proved, I think, that COVID has not defeated our pedagogic spirit, which is great, of course. I would like also to congratulate all the participants, those long-listed and those short-listed, whose presentations we have had the pleasure to listen to today. It is a particular delight and privilege to announce on behalf of the jury that the first prize and the title of the best UJ speaker of 2021 goes to Magda Łysy, 79 points. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
The second prize goes to Sylwia Wołoch, 75 points. Congratulations. And finally, the third prize winner is Jagoda Zimała, 73 points. Congratulations and
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Congratulations, participants. Really, really, really amazing. Okay.
The timing is also very good, isn't it?
Yes, yes, exactly. Exactly. So, yeah, go ahead, Miss.
Right, so I'd like to thank all participants and congratulate you on a very high level of your presentations. I think that, well, it was a really very successful event and you did very, very well. All of you, really. Magda, special congratulations. It was the first place, well deserved, really. Thank you, everybody. Well, let's hope we can meet next year in a better place. But I think this one was good enough. Thank you, members of the jury. Everybody, see you next year.
Thank you so much.
Bye. Piotr, thank you for hosting the event.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to encourage you to one more activity. Let's make it forever, and please turn on your cameras. I would like to make a screenshot of all of you in here. We can turn on together mode. Yes, perfect. Amazing. Let's see how many people we have in here. Yes, that's great. That's great. Okay. And I need some reactions also. It will be even better to have it.
Not much happening.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, screenshot number 1 done, and we can have another one if you would like.
Sure.
So maybe let's do some reactions or thumbs up for this event. It was really, really amazing. Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate all of you. I really appreciate your presentations. Thank you so much, all of the Jagiellonian Language Center, all of the directors, professors. Thank you so much, TEDx, Miss Emilia. Thank you so much, everyone. It was really, really pleasure to see you online. And yeah, we can do this even if we cannot meet, you know, in a real life, right? So thanks again and see you next time.
See you all next week, next year. Thank you very much.
And thank
Bye.
you.
Congratulations, and next year. See you next year.
Congratulations. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you once again.